Hey everyone, Cody Hayes here, and I'd like to welcome you to part four as we look at the events that helped shape the New Testament. And we left off with the religious / political parties within Judaism. Jesus of Nazareth would very much have known about these parties. In the canonical New Testament, three of the four are mentioned. The only one that is not is the Essenes. But moving forward, and we have an image here of the Great Fire of Rome. In 49 CE/AD, the Jewish people are expelled from Rome by the Emperor Claudius by what is believed to have been a Christian influence. So, what exactly is happening here? Well, Suetonius, who was a Roman historian in his Lives of the 12 Caesars, he mentions how Claudius kicked out the Jewish people in Rome, in the city of Rome, because of an agitator named Trestus. And Trestus is thought to have been a miscopying of Christ, of Christus. Whether that error was done by Suetonius himself or somebody who copied him, that basically that the Christus was actually supposed to be Christus, but anyway, reference to Christ, Jesus Christ. That basically Christian missionaries, and more than likely the one here would have been Peter, is going around and spreading the message of Jesus's teachings, and this causes agitation among the Jewish people in Rome, basically where Peter is stating how, Jesus fulfilled the messianic requirements, and the other Jewish people are hearing this, and many of them are making the case, no, I don't think he did. And so this causes a division in Rome among the Jewish community. Claudius, who wouldn't have really known the difference at all, basically just threw them all out. Well, then moving forward, in 64 CE/AD, the city of Rome is destroyed by a fire. This is what is known as the Great Fire of Rome, and how exactly the fire started is debated among historians, but it ranges from accidental to intentional. The Roman Emperor Nero, he places blame on the fire or for the fire on Christians. Nero was not a popular emperor. He hated the city of Rome. He wanted to move his capital from Rome to Naples, and public opinion stopped him from doing so. But one of the understandings, and I believe this comes from Pliny the Younger, I believe he argued that Nero did set Rome ablaze to intentionally destroy the city so then he could rebuild it in an image that he liked. Um, Tacitus, a Roman historian, he acknowledges that the argument, the rumor that Nero intentionally started the fire, but he takes a moderate stance that it ranges from essentially, people intentionally trying to keep the blaze going, but were they intentionally keeping the blaze going because they were following orders, or they were just people acting on their own and wanting to pillage the city? But regardless of which, Nero, he's not a popular emperor, and he needs a scapegoat for this, and so he puts the blame on the Christians. And Tacitus, who was not a fan of the Christian community, he refers to them as a superstition, and the individual who started it, this Christus, was executed by Pontius Pilate, the Roman governor of Judea, when Tiberius was the emperor of Rome. But He also realizes and he mentions that there was a pity among the citizens of Rome towards the Christians because they knew that in many respects they were being placed as a scapegoat. But the persecution of the Christians resulted in the deaths of its two most prominent leaders, Peter and Paul. Peter was executed by crucifixion in the circus of Nero. And the tradition is that he was crucified upside down. That may be a little bit of Christian piety, but he certainly was, executed by crucifixion. Paul, by contrast, was beheaded. Paul was a Roman citizen, so he was able to die by being beheaded, which was considered a more humane death than dying by crucifixion. Because how you die from crucifixion is that your lungs collapse. Well, moving forward in 67 CE or AD, the Jewish people in Judea, they attempt to revolt against the Roman Empire. Essentially, the Jewish people were tired of the corrupt Roman leaders in Judea and tired essentially of being, not their own independent people. They're subjected to the Roman Empire. And so they want to, overthrow Roman rule. And this, of course, creates what's known as the First Roman Jewish War. But the attempt to do so was unsuccessful, and in 70 CE/AD, the Jewish temple was destroyed by the Romans. So the attempt was unsuccessful. The Jewish temple was destroyed. All that's left of it is what is known as the Western Wall or the Wailing Wall. And you have here the image on the screen of the Romans, and I believe this is from the Arch of Titus, the Arch of Titus, where they're taking away the spoils of the temple, one of them being the temple menorah. And I don't remember if this was during John Paul II's papacy or his successor, Benedict XVI, but it's when one of the bishops of Rome, one of those two, or whom we commonly would refer to as the Pope, went to the Holy Land, and apparently a number of Jewish people were yelling at the Pope, the Bishop of Rome, give us back the menorah that supposedly the Vatican has it. And I guess the argument is that when the Roman Emperor Constantine favored the Christian community, he gave the Bishop of Rome, the Pope, some of the spoils from the temple in Jerusalem, one of them being the temple menorah. The only problem with that argument is that Constantine favoring the Christian community happened essentially 240 years after the events took place. And obviously, nobody could see in the future that at the time, this small movement that's coming out of Judaism would one day be a movement favored by a Roman emperor and ultimately become the official religion of the Roman Empire. So, more than likely, what happened to the temple menorah was it was probably melted down for whatever precious metals was on it. So, simply put, the menorah no longer exists. Well, at the end of the Roman Jewish War, the Pharisees were the religious slash political party to survive, and hence all modern day Jews would descend from the Pharisees. So, mentioned earlier that you had, these four religious slash political parties within Judaism. And of those four, the Pharisees were the ones to survive, and hence all modern day Jews would descend from the Pharisees. The Sadducees, because they were often in high positions of power within the Roman government, they were certainly not looked upon favorably after the Roman Jewish War. The Essenes basically died out, and the Zealots, their end is a little bit more tragic. Um, they were essentially housed up in a fortress of Herod the Great's. In case you're wondering, that's the same Herod that's referenced in the Christmas story. This fortress at Masada, and the Romans are coming, and they know that the Romans are going to get them. And those that aren't killed when the Romans first arrive, they pretty much know what's going to happen to them. They're either going to be sold into slavery, they are either going to be crucified, and the chances are good that the women who are there are more than likely going to be raped by the Roman soldiers. So rather than risk all this, they ended up committing suicide. But to say something, with the Pharisees and them being the only religious slash political party to survive, the Pharisees are often treated very harshly in the canonical Gospels. And a major reason why is because they would have been the individuals arguing that Jesus did not fulfill the messianic requirements. And with the destruction of the temple in Jerusalem, many of the 613 commandments or laws within Judaism could no longer be practiced. The Torah slash law contains 613 commandments. The 10 commandments are but 10 of the 613 laws. Modern day Jews cannot practice all of those commandments, so 613 commandments, because a lot of them relate to the temple system, the temple cult, and there is no longer a temple. And overall, the Jewish people have no desire to rebuild the temple and have what we would call a third temple Judaism. But even of those that can still be practiced, contemporary Jews, many of them hold that a lot of them, such as the dietary laws, are really no longer necessary, that they, reflect ideas long in the past that have no meaning anymore in the present world. Well, we are going to need to stop here, and then when we come back, we will finish up the little bit that we have left in this lecture. So take care. I will symbolically see you then.